What's happening, good people? Welcome to the channel. I'm Wes, aka Mr. Budget Watch, and today we'll be looking at a fashion watch. Yes, you heard that right, a fashion watch. So this one was loaned into the channel by the watch shop and does have to return once the review is complete. If you don't know, the watch shop is a massive online retailer based in the UK. They have a very broad range of watches available, from affordable to the more premium. They have year-round sales, price matching on select models, codes for discounts, as well as great customer services. So link for the watch shop and this watch can be found in the description. So I know with fashion watches, they do get a lot of hate in the community, and rightly so in some cases, but are all of them the same? That's what I'm going to be taking a look at today. So our sample on the test bench is the Armani Exchange Geraldo AX2111. This is of course a fashion watch, but not from a fashion watch brand per se. Armani are best known in the fashion industry for, of course, their suits, apparel and all the other things, but they're not really known as a watchmaker. But they did actually recently decide to create watches with their name on the dial. Now, of course, they don't make them in-house. They obviously hire a third party to make them for them. But does that make them bad? Well, one good thing, I actually think their business practices are a lot more acceptable than that of, say, Movement and Vincero. You know, those ones that force-fed unsuspecting buyers into thinking they were getting affordable luxury. I mean, we all know how that panned out. As a matter of fact, I don't recall any influencer bragging about these watches in the same way they did those mentioned brands a few years back. This is also evident by the lack of cringy buzzwords on the product's listing. As we've all seen, the change in the industry and all the likes. None of that I've seen whatsoever. If anything, the listings are actually a little bit sparse on information, which again is a problem in itself, but that can be for a different video. So it's clear that Armani are doing things a little bit differently, and they obviously rely on other means to get sales. After all, if these watches weren't selling and losing money, then, surely they'd have pulled the plug on the whole venture a long time ago. So how exactly do they secure sales? Well, an educated guess, that is all that it is, presumes that they adopt a more low-key advertising that is a little bit more subtle. Also, they have a big presence in stores on the high street. There's of course online retailers as well that offer these watches, for example the watch shop and many others as well. Their final method would be, of course, their brand. I mean, Armani, after all, is a huge global name and has a lot of presence, so products with their branding on is bound to grab attention, especially from fans of their products. Well, whatever their approach, I mean, it's clearly working, and I appreciate the fact that they aren't adopting shady tactics and blatantly offering paid reviews to anyone who can be influenced in that way. So all that out of the way, how is the actual watch? Well, it's actually pretty decent. I know, right? Size-wise, it's a little bit on the big side, measuring at 41.8mm. This though increases to 43 at the widest point. This then further increases to 46 if you include the crown. Lug to lug is 46.4, which is actually quite manageable. And that is true to size, as we do have an end link that actually moves. I know. Thickness is 10.4mm and the lug width is 18. Finally, to the crown, that's 6.1mm. Construction is about standard too. Got a stainless steel case and bracelet. Not sure if it's 316L or the more basic and cheaper 304L. I can't really find any definitive answer on that. The crystal is mineral, which is a little bit of a shame that it's not sapphire, but it's not a deal breaker. It has 50 meters of water resistance, which I would say is about passable for a watch like this. The weight size for me is 118 gram, and it has a pop-off case pack and a pull-push crown, which is likely the culprit for the 50 meters of water resistance. Although not amazing, it's not the worst spec I've seen. To the aesthetic, and it's quite a handsome watch. The finish is done in a nice gunmetal grey, which sort of gives it a more modern look. And it also has a blend of finishes, starting with the outer bezel, which is vertically brushed and has a tasteful pop of polish. Now bear in mind, this is not a high polish, as it's a little bit more subdued, but I actually like it as a little bit of contrast that just gives it a little bit of something. The dial though is surprisingly where this watch really shines. The outer perimeter you'll find a simply done minute track, along with shallow applied high polished baton indices. We have single and then double at the 12. These are all well done and pop nicely in different lighting situations. At the 3 is a dark black date window, which if it has to be done, I'd prefer it to be sort of more colour matched than a white one, so that's appreciated. Though, of course, you guys know I would prefer if it didn't have any. The hands are a little bit basic but suit the style well. They're a high polished fence post style with a slight bevel. They do actually extend quite well though, and they aren't too short. And the second hand even hits the majority of its markers, which some more expensive Swiss watches fail to do. So that's a nice plus there. To the real highlight though, and that is the dial. And you know what? It's very nice. It has a honeycomb style, which is textured, and a nice blue finish. But not only that, it has a very subtle sunburst as well. And all of it is pretty well executed. As is as well, the text is pretty minimal, with just Armani branding below the 12. I really don't mind this actually, as you get more of that dial on display. The sides of the watch are a little bit plain and have a nice brushed horizontal finish. It's not the best quality brushing I've ever seen, but it's nice enough. The other side is much of the same apart from the signed crown. So this is engraved and has a brushed finish. Quite impressive and suits the aesthetic well. The caseback though is very basic and just a high polished pop off style, and simply features an etched accent and text, so we're just going to move straight on. The bracelet though is actually not the worst I've ever seen, but it's definitely not the best either. The finish matches the case with the brushing and subtle polish in the centre. The brushing is okay, but the polish is not done to the best standard. I've also noticed that if it scratches, it's going to be nigh on impossible to sort out because of the colouring of it. On the plus side, we have that flexible end link, solid end links, and solid links. It also has a very nice taper too, which just sort of adds to the drama of it. It's very nice. The clasp though is extremely basic, as it's just pressed. It does have double security pushers and branding, and that's about your lot. It does match the finish pretty well though, it's pretty blah. It also has no micro adjust either, which is a bit of a downer. Finally, one of the main drawbacks of the bracelet is it's a real fingerprint magnet. And plus, if you've got slightly oily fingers, it's definitely not the easiest bracelet to keep clean. On the wrist experience, and do you know what, it's okay. It's not the most comfortable by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not unbearable to wear either. The bracelet doesn't have the most range, and you might be hard pressed to get a perfect fit because of the lack of micro adjusts and also the lack of half links. The articulation isn't over impressive either, and the bracelet is a little bit on the rigid side. On the plus side though, the watch does fit pretty well on my slim 6-inch wrist, as there is no overhang due to the 46mm lug to lug, and also the end link design as well. That has definitely contributes to a nice wearing experience, so it does actually wear pretty much true to size. The profile sits nice too, with no gap at all, and it's actually okay. I just think the overall comfort is slightly let down by the bracelet. Though this watch fits me perfectly fine, I think for you guys with different wrists to myself might be in a bit of a gamble situation on the fitment front. It's either going to fit nice or it's going to be really tight or potentially too loose. So you might need to look at an alternative strap if that's possible. As for the core of this watch, it's powered by an unknown Japanese quartz, so no specifications today. I did try to remove the case back, but there is a little bit of a design flaw. The tab that is supposed to have the small gap under it to slip a removal tool in is pretty much non-existent, and I can't open it without potentially damaging the watch. I'm not sure if this is a common problem, but it could require a specialist tool that I simply do not have. So it's possible that you also may need to take this to a proper watch store to have the battery changed every time it needs one. Unfortunately though, I can't actually say how long that's going to be, but typically it's around 3 to 4 years. On the plus side, it's a very nice movement to use. It's smooth and very nice to use on a daily basis if you need to, which you obviously don't. One pull-out is the date. This unfortunately isn't quickset, which actually sort of rules it out as being a Seiko potentially, but again, don't quote me on that. 2 pulls out and you can actually adjust the time, which actually feels nice, though the lack of grip on the crown is a little bit annoying, but like I said, at least you only have to use it very occasionally. Down to brass taxes, the cost. Full retail of this watch is £170. However, if you hop over to the watch shop and use their code, that brings 25% off the price to a more palatable £127. Still a little bit rich for an unknown quartz, and also what else is on offer. Price point in my opinion should really be around the £100 to £115 at a push for everything on offer. Though compared to those £5 toys some fashion watch brands sell for north of £100, in the grand scheme of things, it's actually not that bad compared to those at least. I mean, as is, this is definitely not the worst watch I've ever had hands on with, but it's not the best either. It definitely has a few shortcomings, but then again, most watches do. I think though the price point is a little bit much, and a lot of what you're paying for is the name, and in this case, I don't think it warrants it. So now to answer my original question, are these watches and the brand as bad as some of the others we've mentioned? And you know what, I don't think there are. I think the watch on offer is actually pretty decent for what you're getting, if you can get it at a good price, that is, and not full retail. But I think their business practice is where they sort of differentiate themselves from the rest of this fashion watch herd. They're obviously not doing the influencer marketing, which is a little bit shady, to be quite honest. But, you know, I appreciate that Armani aren't going down that route and relying more on their other practices to sell watches, and that can be applauded and appreciated in this day and age. So what do you think of fashion watch brands? Should we treat them all the same, or are there some exceptions? Like, in my opinion, this. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any uploads. And of course, follow me on social media at Mr. Budget Watch. Thanks again. I'll see you soon.